We don't start the public hearings till 7.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so keep going until 7.
Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. We'll start with the prayer. Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves the city in the decision-making process. We pray for direction, which we will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city to make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Kirk, please have a roll call.
Council Dakota.
Here.
Council Getchia.
Here. Here.
Council Janess.
Here.
Council Leahy. Here. Council Mercier.
Here.
Council Noon.
Here.
Council Robinson.
Here.
Mayor Rourke.
Here.
Council Scott.
Here.
Council Yem.
Here.
Council Chow.
Here.
11 present.
Thank you. Mayor's business, 2.1, communication, remote.
Moment of silence.
Apologize. Councilor Mercer, moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. Newly elected Mayor Rourke. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Charles F. Gallagher, son of Elizabeth and former city manager Charlie Gallagher. He spent his formative years in Lowell receiving his education at St. Peter's School and Keith Academy. His academic journey continued as he earned his bachelor's degree from Lowell State College and went on to achieve his master's degree from Fitchburg State College. For over 3 decades, Charlie dedicated his professional life to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services. He retired in 2008 as the Director of Workmen's Compensation and Litigation and the Director of the Firearm Unit for the Human Resources Department of the state of Massachusetts, leaving an indelible mark on the organization and those he worked alongside with. Charlie is survived by his devoted companion of over 40 years, Kathy Bovier, their son Christopher Gallagher, and granddaughter Charlie Mae Gallagher. He also leaves behind 3 sisters, Mary Lucas, Margaret Dorr, and Ann Gallagher. Charlie was known for his kindness and sense of humor, always brightening the lives of those around him, as well as myself when I was a young girl, practically living at their house. We offer our condolences to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. I'd also like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber to all those who passed on since our last City Council meeting. May they all rest in peace. Thank you.
Mayor's business, 2.1, communication, remote, Zoom participation. Motion to accept by Councilor Chow, seconded by Councilor Dakota. Accept, put it on file. Section 3, City Clerk, 3.1, the minutes of City Council, December 19th for acceptance. Motion by Councilor Getchia, seconded by Councilor Janess. Not being 7 o'clock yet, let's get the public hearings, go right to the motions. Motion 5.1, Councilor Getchia. Request the city manager update the city council on installation of generators at all firehouses. Seconded by Councilor Janess. Councilor Getchia.
Mr. Mayor, there's a registered speaker on this matter. Laura Ortiz. Tell us 3 minutes.
For the loan order, correct? 4.2?
5.1,
Oh, 5.1, sorry.
one of the many.
Thank you for letting me speak. City of Lowell resident. So I just want to make a comment. I think it's wonderful that you want to put the generators at all the firehouses, but I'm just curious when we're going to see the roof leaks fixed at all the firehouses. I know they're about as bad as also at the schools, and I'm kind of concerned that the firefighters get forgotten. I think this has been a problem for a long time. We pulled the records years ago and gave it to the city. It still seems to be the same problem, and I'm not quite understanding why the firefighters who risk their life every day have perpetual roof leaks and really bad indoor air quality. So I was wondering if the City Council could get the Bureau of Environmental Health to go into all of the firefighters, you know, the different firehouses and check the air quality, the same as it did in the schools. But anyhow, thank you for the generators.
Do you mind just stating your name for the record and address, please? Ms. Ortiz?
Oh, I'm so sorry, what?
Your name and record for the, name and address for the record?
Yeah, I said Laura Ortiz, City of Lowell resident.
Thank you. Councilor Getchia?
Thank you, Mayor Rourke. I know the manager's been working on this, and there's an OPM that is ready to be hired to go over a lot of the facilities issues that Ms. Ortiz discussed. But my issue is that if we're looking at generators, could we look into something that is battery storage on them, and so that we could actually use it on high peak demands and start looking into saving energy, maybe through solar power to them, because they're not huge buildings. And I just think that if we start looking at this, there is a bunch of savings out there, net savings, that we could probably get grants to do some of these relatively easy. And I just think that when you look at battery energy storage, in looking at it when you're high peak demands, there's a bunch of money out there that can be saved. And that's really, I know that we've been working on this, that's been a goal of yours. And I just wanted to see where we were with this, because recently when we had the power outage, a lot of the fire stations, they're out there with candle trying to see in the stations, and they have to lift the doors themselves. And there are many issues. So the sooner possible, the better. Because I just think that we put more people at risk if our public safety buildings don't have some of these generators. That was really the purpose of the motion. And I know that you have OPM coming in and trying to do some of the larger projects, but I'd like to separate this from the OPM piece and try to get this done in-house faster. I know we just replaced one at Greater Lowell, and it was done for roughly $33,000, and it's a main one for there. So if that can be something that we could separate on and just get done sooner, and I don't know what your queuing is, that's why I'm kind of asking the question.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through to the council. Council, we have been doing a number of things over the firehouse with different improvements, but if you give us a little bit of an opportunity, given this motion, we probably be able to get back to you in the next couple of weeks to talk about some of the things we've done with abatement work that's been happening throughout the city of Lowell and the firehouses specifically, as well as the great work we did with Greater Lowell Tech, which I know that everybody here is very familiar with out at Old Ferry. But this is something that we could definitely bring back in a timely manner because it is something that has been in the works for some time. However, the point is well taken, where we did have a number of hours in some situations in a few days. And from the administration standpoint, we fully expect that our public safety firehouses as well as our police departments would be up and running with some type of backup. And that is not the case right now, but I know that the assistant city manager as well as our DPW commissioner as well and Mr. Byrne are working on that. So if you could give me a couple of weeks, we'll get back to you with a rundown. Because you are right, they're not exactly energy hungry. You're talking about a small area, and I think it's something that we could definitely do, especially given the fact that if roofs need to be done, repointing of the bricks would need to be done, some of the painting. I was talking to one of the councilors today about that. So point well taken, and we will be getting something back hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Anything else? No. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. 5.2, Councilor Getchia, request city manager update the city council on the creation of a facilities department for all municipal buildings and school buildings. Second by Councilor Robinson. Councilor Getchia.
Mr. Mayor, there's a registered speaker on the matter. Laura Ortiz.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. You want me to repeat it? What
Sure.
I said before? Laura Ortiz, City of Lowell resident. So the comment that I wanted to make on this is a hesitation on pulling any school money away from the actual school. Is this something that is going to be funded for the city separate, or is this something where you're going to take from the budget of the students that are already hurting, that are not supported enough? And so the other thing too is that, is this something where the city's going to finally take ownership of all the school buildings that are supposed to be maintained that have not been maintained for decades? And is this going to actually solve the problem? And also, is this something where the schools are not going to have any more input, where they're not going to be allowed to talk about the issues that they have, and where the city's going to take it over and you're going to actually segregate the schools and their right to speak about the issues for their staff, the parents' issues for the students, and et cetera, and all that. And that's what I wanted to say. And I'm not trying to critique that it's a negative thing. I'm just a little bit worried about any more money being pulled from the school, in essence, for the causation of the city for not fixing things, that it really should just take ownership and fix everything completely once and for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Getchia.
Thank you, Mayor Rook. Back on February 1st of 2022, a motion was made to meet with the school committee's facilities subcommittee, which was held on April 12th of 2022. At that time, a motion was made to retain a consultant to provide costs, pros and cons to establish a centralized facility. Council Leahy at the time had said, why don't we hold off, because this is a function of the manager, and there was a new manager coming in, and that really is a function of the manager, and it's something that should be done that way. I know we have used, at the same time, there was a motion to recommend using $500,000 to put on-call services for HVAC, which I know that the manager has done, and we have probably spent much more than $500,000 in on-call services trying to get things up and running. So I thank you for that. It's just, when you start looking at our facilities and we start looking at managing, I think we have to do something in the organizational chart that's going to change, because it really is overwhelming for one department to do something. And I've heard over and over again over the last couple of years about all the cuts that were done to custodial staff, and they don't have as many custodians. Why would they have as many custodians when it isn't their building to take care of? So those are the questions when we start looking at structure-wise and how do we put together something that has the best interests of the same parties together, whether it be facilities of maintaining the HVAC systems, broken windows, doors, and everything in between. And can we cross-train some of our custodial staff to be a next level up and pay them better and say, okay, you can change the filters in these things. And so I think that when we start looking at centralized facilities, there's a major benefit to the city. And you can one look at like a Worcester or someone like that, who's a very big, large community, you'll see that that's the way they go. And it's a very big challenge because you have two people pulling at the apple, as Ms. Ortiz just stated, where's the money, who's this, who's that. But indirect costs pick up certain costs on buildings, and we need to make sure that the learning environment is not taking away from the students' learning. And that's the important piece, is as we fight over whose money is this, which money is that, we forget that there's students involved in this that are now stuck in places where it's extremely hot, or it's extremely cold, or the windows don't open, or there's some other issue that can come up. So we have to put our heads together, and I don't want this sent to another subcommittee because they're just going to point back to the manager and say, you're the person who does this. So we just go around the bush. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. I think Councilor Leahy would agree to that, and Councilor Robinson would too, because he sat in that subcommittee, and it just seems as though we need to have a real discussion, and someone's going to be the bad guy when you put this together. Who's going to be in charge? If the city takes it over, the school department's going to be mad. If the school department takes it over, the city side's going to be mad. But at the end of the day, it's about student learning and giving them an environment to learn within, and giving our building the life expectancies that they well deserve. And I don't think that we're doing that currently because of the maintenance issues that we have on both sides. I don't think it's one or the other. I think if you go in some of these buildings, you can see one custodian, there's no way that they can strip all the floors in one of those buildings, re-wax them, and do all the other things, clean the vents, and make sure everything's up to date. So I think that there's a challenge on both ends, and I think we just have to come together and figure out, okay, we have this much staff, how do we put it together? How do we maintain something that will make our schools a better place for everybody? And we got to stop kicking the can at each other and say, Mr. Manager, we hired you to do this. Let's figure this thing out. And I know you've been working hard on, the HVAC systems to this and that, but if you start doing that, I don't know, are things being vacuumed right? I don't know these answers, but I know when I go in some of these schools, they don't meet what I would call a learning environment situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Robinson?
Thank you, and I thank my colleague for bringing this forward again. We filed this, as was mentioned a while ago. I think it makes sense. I think the opportunity is before us, but it has to be done right. I think we need to bring all parties to the table to start these conversations, because it is going to take cooperation from a bunch of different entities. It's between, obviously, us, school, the unions involved, everybody involved. As we're all aware, landlord-tenant relationship. Ultimately, facilities are our responsibility. All of us are clear about that. I think what streamlining and creating a centralized facilities department does, it allows full transparency with expenditures and finance. It shows a more willingness to work, because I think the schools and us, we have a combined focused objective, and that's create the best possible learning environment for our students, our teachers, our families, and the residents of Lowell. So I think a centralized facilities could be the gateway to some serious accountability and both short, medium, and all three, short, medium, and long-term kind of commitment. I don't think we need to start looking at creating a whirlwind of new positions. I think we have plenty of capable people already employed in both areas. I think it's a matter of looking at reorganization for efficiencies, and I also think it's a matter of assignment and holding people responsible once we can come up with centralized facilities. I mean, we have a school superintendent, we have a city manager. Maybe we need to look towards a centralized facilities manager that would be in line with those two positions, and have the supervisory positions that already exist below accordingly in that flow chart. But I think this might be the right way to move forward with, again, the manager we have in place, who's more than willing to try to tackle some of the long-term challenges that we've had, as well as some of the department heads that we have in place already that are very familiar with the facilities. So I think this is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. And I just want to add to this too, Mr. Manager. We've had these conversations. I had these conversations in the past too. And this isn't going to work, in my opinion, until we negotiate a second and third shift into these contracts. You can't go into the school buildings during the day when the kids are there. And we can't keep doing everything by overtime. So when the contracts come up this year, we can't sign a contract until we get second and third shifts. If we just need a second shift, then fine. If we need second and third, but this is the time to do it. We've been, past councils have been asking for this for 10, 15 years, but it's not going to work until we get these split shifts. And again, if we do need a couple more people, we're going to have to bite the bullet and hire a few more hires, but we do have the staff to do this, but again, you can't maintain schools from 7 to 3. It's just impossible. Thank you.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Motion 5.3 by Councilor Mercier. Request city manager have treasurer report as to how many constables we have in the city, how much revenue is collected a year for services from them as civil process servers, and if the city is rightfully getting 25% share, and who is overseeing that duty to make sure it is happening. Seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to amend this motion to put in what was inadvertently omitted. I like the 2 words, second request, put into this motion. If I could just amend it, say second request. This is a second request.
By Council Mercer, second by Council Noon.
Thank you. Constables appointed under Section 91, 91A, and 91B are otherwise elected to serve as constables in a city or town shall periodically pay the city or town in which the constable is appointed or elected 25% of all fees the constable collects for the service of civil process under the fee structure established in Section 8 of Chapter 262. This payment shall be made in installments to be deposited with the city or town treasurer not later than January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, and October 15th of each year. I believe the money goes into the general fund. In some communities, from what I've investigated, some communities generate close to $1 million. And I'm wondering, out of curiosity, what are we getting? How many constables do we have in Lowell? Who is overseeing the collection of these funds? Could we check with other communities and see what their status is as far as constables and their fees that they're generating? The bottom line is, I'm making this motion just to know if we're getting our fair share. I'd like a full report, of which I did not get. So this is my second request. Can we find the answer? Or is no one overseeing this issue? Do we not keep track of where the money is coming from? Is this motion so difficult to answer? I just hope that I don't need a third request, because I will. I just want an answer. I don't know why I can't get one. That's it.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion passes. Motion 5.4 by Councilor Dakota. Request city manager coordinate with the superintendent of schools to investigate and evaluate the feasibility of consolidating city and school departments. Seconded by Councilor Scott. Councilor Dakota.
There's a registered speaker here, Mr. Mayor. Laura Ortiz.
Do you want me to say it again?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Laura Ortiz, a resident of Lowell. So reading this, I'm a little bit confused about consolidating city and school departments. Which departments? You know, what is this talking about? You know, is this something where you're going to pull something that's working very well in the schools and now the city's going to take it over? Did this have anything to do with the 5.2, or is this completely separate departments?
Mr. Mayor?
Let her finish. Good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned, you know, again and again, agenda meeting items, and even some of the councils put on, you know, we as a people, we have no idea. I wish that there was more detail, maybe a document, some type of, you know, better description, because how can you expect the people in the, you know, there's hardly anyone here because we don't even really know what you're going to discuss. And it's, you know, aside from, you know, issues with the open meeting laws, you know, I think it's a problem because it doesn't really engage the people in all the communities that maybe they have an interest in this type of thing that might actually change their schools and make them not for the better, make them for the worse. And I'm not trying to discredit the ideas of the city or to be negative, but there's just tremendous concern because there's an awful lot of government business and there's zero transparency. And this is one of the things, and I wish I could speak after him because maybe I'd like to say more, but I just wanted to say that, that I wish you do a better good faith effort when it comes to these agenda items so that people can actually show up and talk about it. Thank you for your time.
Just for the record, Ms. Ortiz, they are publicly posted for 3 days.
I'm so sorry, what?
They are publicly posted for 3 days, and people like yourself can come down and speak on them. Thank you. Councilor Dakota?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My campaign platform was about efficiency and accountability in government. This motion requests an investigation concerning the efficiency of government and whether combining resources is feasible, whether it is suitable, and can be done successfully. I received a deluge of emails from people accusing me of wanting to eliminate jobs. I take exception to this attempt to intimidate or silence me. If a councilor cannot ask for an investigation as to the feasibility of something, then what exactly is a councilor's job? To fill potholes? I appreciate the time the city manager and the interim superintendent of schools will invest in this matter, and I look forward to a response. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is an excellent first motion by Councilor Dakota. I think looking for efficiencies is certainly within our purview. The only comment that I guess I would make on it is that the school department is an independent board. So I don't know, have we had a vote by the school committee at any point in time asking them if they're looking to combine bodies, combine services? I don't know if that's something we could bring back to the mayor in the form of a motion, just to make sure that they're even on board with looking at these efficiencies. Obviously, they're in the business of educating children. I would think maybe they don't want to be in the, facilities or payroll or whatever area we're looking at. And obviously, that will come back for a lot more discussion than just the motion itself. There'll be a lot of conversation for public participation. The unions have to be on board. There's different wage scales between the different committees. So I would make that in the form of the motion, I guess, just to go back to the school committee, ask if they'd like to enter in discussions around combined services. Thank you.
Motion by Councilor Scott, second by Councilor Young. All those in favor? Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the maker of the motion, are there any specific areas we're looking? Because, I'm not sure the total number of departments, but the way this is worded, just to look at feasibility of consolidating city and school departments, that's a large combination of potentials. Are we just overall, is this a general view as to how can we become efficient, or are there any specific areas that we need to take a look at? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Dakota?
No, I appreciate the comment, Councilor. I'm looking at this from right now, an interim superintendent of schools. Hopefully that tag is taken off soon, but knowing that Mr. Skinner is going to be brand new, we have a city manager who's been here a year and a half. I would like to see a full-scale look at what we have in both the city side and the school side, and what makes efficient and effective government.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Getchia?
Thank you, Mayor Rourke. I think it's a good idea because we do multiple tasks, whether it's HR pieces, whether it is hiring, whether you look at auditing, whether it's purchasing. I think there's multiple things that cross over. And then at the end, we look and we try to figure out, I think we can go over bad bills and understand that piece. Are they trained the same way as the city people are trained? Can you cross over? Is there something that can be worked out that way? And I think that this is a good motion to look at, okay, the organizational structures of both and say, are we duplicating something? And is somebody having a heavy lift and someone not lifting as much? And if they were combined together, would it make it easier for both sides? So I think it's something that if you look at the structure and you start thinking about, okay, how does this all work? You take the schools, the landscape of the schools and stuff like that. Can it be crossed over where someone's at the school who can do simple things on the outside of the school? So I think it has a lot of value when you start looking at the overall picture. So I would love to see this come back because I think that there's some value in it, and especially when the CFO and then you look at the auditor goes through this, a lot. So maybe there are corrections that can happen, and maybe even, the city solicitor, when you look at that piece. So there are some things that we should look at and say, can it cross over and can we combine it and make it efficient? I think it's a great motion. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Very quickly, I like the motion, and, this is something we've been looking at for a while, and it should be looked at again, and we should make sure that the HR department works efficiently. They can be combined, especially facilities. The school, as much as the city, has been making cuts over the last 15 years, and they can't keep up with it, especially during the summer, between the indoor cleaning and the outdoor cutting the grass and keeping the grounds up. It's an impossible task. And the neighbors deserve to have a nice-looking school in their neighborhood. So this is great. Let's take another look at it, see what we can do, what we can come up with, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we tried. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Just quickly, I think it's a great idea, starting point to see what we can do to save some money and increase services. So Well done, Counselor. Moving on to 7, all those approved, opposed, motion passes. Moving on to general public hearings, it being 7 p.m. Public hearing 4.1, the ordinance to create performance surety deposit revolving fund. Open hearing, start off with all those in favor? All those in favor? Part of the hearing is closed. All those opposed? All those opposed? Oh, sorry, Mr. Mason? Good? Okay, great. Part is closed and adopted by Councilor Getchia, seconded by Councilor Janess. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Counsel Dakota.
Here. Yes. Here.
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Counsel Getchia.
You just knew it was going to happen.
You were before me, so we're good there.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
I'm here for the yes also.
Yes. 11 yeas.
Public hearing 4.2, loan order, MSBA Accelerated Repair Program. Open up the hearing for all those in favor. All those in favor. The part of the meeting is closed. All those in opposition.
There is a registered speaker, though there's no need to register. It's a public hearing. Laura Ortiz. Oh. It's a public hearing. You're welcome to speak if you want.
Do I say it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Laura Ortiz, resident of Massachusetts. So the question that I had is that, in regards to this, is what is the plan for the rest of the roofs? You know, if the MSBA says no and it's not going to fund anymore, what is the plan to get these roof leaks, the 302 and the more than 26 schools fixed? Is that something that the city plans on addressing this year, or is this just going to, carry over into the next year? Because I'm greatly concerned about the children that keep having to breathe in the air quality, although I appreciate the Bureau of Environmental Health going to the Pawtucket Memorial. The point is that you had more than 302 roof leaks, and, we've got kids in these schools, and it's not fair. We shouldn't have them breathing in this air. We shouldn't have the staff breathing in the air, nor the visitors. And so aside from the firefighters, I'm just really concerned that the roof problem has just gotten out of control, and everyone keeps kicking the can down the road, and this problem just doesn't get fixed. So that's what I wanted to say. But I did want to say thank you for, for making this, making an effort with the state, and then the fact that you're going to get some of this money. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jay Mason. I live at 415 Pawtucket Street. I'd like to speak about the MSBA. I understand they're stepping up to help fund this project to the tune of about 75% of the cost. That's wonderful. But unfortunately, the MSBA doesn't support clean energy replacements. I believe the city wrote a letter to the MSBA last spring to that effect, but I'm not sure what the status of that is or was. And I know we're not here to change the policies and procedures of the MSBA, but since they are doing this replacement funding investment for us, I did some back-of-the-envelope math. The IRA provides 30 to 50% funding for clean energy systems, so it's not as much money, but it's clean energy, much different than the fossil fuel energy that's going to take to do these 4 boilers we're talking about. The lower funding would cost the city an approximate $3.5 million more to go electric, and I'm not expecting that to happen at this hour. We're too far down the road. The deal's been virtually completed as I stand here, but the fact remains that we live in a time of extremes. There are reasons to step outside of conventional wisdom. That's what I'm asking the leadership of the City Council to do. I'd like to see that we make decisions that embrace the realities of the extreme unknowns that we face with our climate. I understand that $1 saved today is $1 saved, but it may lead to unexpected costs in the future. For the record, I'd like to just mention 3 arguments that go beyond the simple economics that we usually consider. Number one, risk mitigation and resilience. Climate change increases the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. We've seen that happen just in this past year to increasingly concerning level. Resilient infrastructure is less prone to damage, reducing the need for frequent repairs and replacements. Argument two, long-term economic benefit. Incorporating climate considerations can lead to long-term economic benefits. Resilient infrastructure is less prone to damage, reducing the need for frequent repairs and replacements. And argument number three, community and social impacts. Well, climate change can disproportionately affect vulnerable communities like Lowell. Investing in infrastructure that considers climate impacts helps protect communities from the social and economic consequences of these extreme events. So it's about taking a stand and doing what's right. And that's not easy. It never is. And in the case of climate-related decisions like these boilers that we're talking about, it's more expensive. And we have to understand that there are ways of looking at that analysis and making a decision that's based on the future. For example, the high school that we built, we put a gas system in that high school. We're going to be living with that gas system for the next 30, 40 years. And we have to take some responsibility for that. These systems are going to be hooked up to our schools for decades to come. As climate conditions worsen, I feel that we're going to lament the decisions that we made today that take us away from clean fuels and a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Sarah Lapp, S-A-R-A-H-L-A-P-P. I'm at 200 Market Street, number 416 in Lowell. And I'm not going to take too much time. I would like to echo the concerns raised by my friend Mr. Mason about the climate impacts of what we are doing with these gas boilers from the MSBA. I think we're all very cognizant that with the financial considerations, it can be difficult to make government, cities, state, federal. And we know that this MSBA issue, it's known, it's not a surprise. It's come up before. We can look at the recent climate report from the state's climate chief that was published in October that identified the MSBA needs to change. And our expectation is if we are in this financial situation, that you all, as city leaders who have the voice with our state, take as much action as possible to ensure that the change can happen. Because you all have more influence than the average Joe, or in my case, the average Josephine, has at this issue. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your consideration. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others opposed? Opposed? The part of the hearing is closed. Open to the council. Councilor Gitche.
Thank you, Mayor O'Rourke. Through you to Manager Golden. I know at one point we were going to write to the MSBA and question the methodology to all of this. Did we ever get a response, or did we ever send out that letter? Do you know?
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the council. We did send the letter, didn't get a response, but I do want to push back a tad. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with our friends here that are talking about this, but the MSBA and the dollar figures were talked about, and at the $13.2 million, I believe it was, 10 of it's going to be paid for by obviously the state, and the other $3 million is going to be paid by the taxpayer here. But one of the other things when we start to look to electrify the system itself, we had a great conversation actually with one of my friends that I've been talking to for years about this. The infrastructure at this point in time is not in a position to accept the electrification of, say, the school the size of Lowell High at this time. I think that, and to all the speakers, they've talked about how it's vitally important that we continue to move down this, but I think with what this council has done and what the administration is looking forward to doing with moving in this direction of cleaning the schools and going with a cleaner heating systems. This is, I think, a great victory for the council today, given the fact that the boilers that we're replacing are 20 years plus. And the boilers that we currently have, yes, they are fueled by fossil fuels, but they're probably in the range of 92% more efficient, or 92% efficiency. So, yes, I agree. We do need to continue to push forward. If it's the council's wish, we'd gladly send another letter to the MSBA talking about this. But there's a lot going on here within the infrastructure within the city, but it's not just the city. This is statewide. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has taken tremendous strides, and we need to continue to push forward more and more. But tonight, I think this is a good thing for the Butler, for the Bartlett, for the Robinson, for the McAvenue, because today I can't speak to each specific system, but electrifying systems or even heat pumps, could that actually be workable in those areas? We are moving efficiently. We're moving as fast as we can because of things that have been brought up earlier in regards to the heating systems and the HVAC systems. So I think that tonight's approval of this loan order would be a victory of us moving forward, especially with the boilers, the older boilers we have, and the efficiency that we're driving forward on. But I do take the comments very seriously by the folks who have been here, who I've known for a number of years, and who continue to push that that we need a cleaner tomorrow. So I do thank you for that.
And I agree with the manager, what he's saying, but I think the MSBA has been out of touch with the environment for many, many years, and that's why we have to accept what they're giving us or nothing, and you can't look a gift horse in the face and push it aside. And I agree with what you're saying is this is the only avenue that you have to get this stuff done. Other communities just have more wealth than we have, and that's why they're greener than we are. And, and that's just sometimes the facts of life is that the inner cities are not capable of doing what the other communities are doing. But I think we still have to get that letter shot back to the MSBA and say it's about time equality comes to the inner cities. And we start fighting back and say, look, yes, there's infrastructure in those buildings that need to be done, but they need to step up and be part of the environment solution too. And I think you do. On the state level, you will get those other communities to support any legislation that would go that way because they're already doing it. So I just think that the MSBA is, and I'm not trying to kick them or anything, I'm just stating the fact is that they're really out of touch. They're taking the easiest route out so that their dollar stretches longer without a concern for the environment. And I do think that, I hope that the council is in agreement that we should write back and continue to write back until we start getting some movement in the direction of the infrastructure in these schools and in all of the facilities in the city. And I thank you for, I understand exactly what you're saying. This is a need right now, and it has to be done right now, and this is the money we get. So but my motion would be to have the manager, again, draw up another letter to the MSBA, but also to our local legislators and ask them to step up and write a letter to the MSBA or file some legislation that tries to help the inner cities who can't afford to upgrade into the environmental piece.
Motion by Councilor Getchia, seconded by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor? Motion passes.
No, I was going to second it.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the speakers. Again, continuing to advocate for these kind of green improvements, it's great. It keeps the conversation going. It keeps everybody being mindful of where we are and where we need to go. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CFO, ballpark. I know in budget season, I know this is a rough number, but I remember numbers coming out and say if we're looking in our budget, what percentage is equivalent to about how many million increase in taxes to our operating budget? You know how we throw the numbers, so say a 1% increase is probably the equivalent to an additional 1.7 million. So again, this is something my colleague hit on as well. And with a $3.5 million potential difference between these two, something that the residents have to be mindful of. We are trying to keep costs down when we're doing large-scale projects, and we have quite a few in the pipeline. So a $3.5 million potential difference between utilizing MSBA or another avenue, as mentioned by one of the speakers, That's the equivalent to almost a 2% increase on taxes to offset just these 4 boilers. And when you look at that in the whole picture, that's just one of the large-scale projects that we're attempting to try to keep costs down and still be able to provide a quality service for our residents. So a lot of these conversations are great because it gets people really thinking and looking at how do we do things efficiently and effectively. I personally would just like to chime in and say thank you for including the Robinson School, because I know that's one of the schools that, for whatever reason, for a long period of time, there's been some heating issues there, and it's great to see that this is finally being addressed amongst the other 3 that are on the list. And I just think hopefully in the near future, through letters sent to the delegation and through letters sent to MSBA requesting, maybe we start getting them to start thinking the way and have the conversations like we're having here on this floor. So thank you.
Councilor Janess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the speakers who came down and spoke on this, and thanks to my colleagues for all their comments and ideas. I'm in agreement that we have to do everything we can in order to get the MSBA and the state as a whole to push things in a more sustainable direction. And I think that the MSBA is going to implement the rules and the legislation that the legislators at Beacon Hill pass. So really, we need to be leaning on those folks to get them to pass laws to make the MSBA prioritize modernization and sustainability in these projects. We can write letters to the MSBA all day. In fact, I believe I was the one who made the motion to send the last letter. But I don't feel like it's going to have a measurable impact until the legislature takes notice. One of the ways I think we might be effective at having them take notice and actually be able to kind of push things forward is if we have our sustainability department kind of take a look at all of the, let's say, facilities issues across our schools and across really all our buildings, but particularly the schools with an eye towards the MSBA. Let's look at what we have coming up. And if we can present to the state government that says, you know, at school X, we got to replace a boiler. Right now, the MSBA, we're going to replace a boiler and it's going to cost us this. Versus school X, maybe we can add solar or geothermal or whatever it may be that makes sense for that school in that instance, for that project. Put another option on the table. You know, really put it in front of them and say, you've got option A here, continue the fossil fuel like for like, swap out 20 years down the road, we put X number of tons of CO2 into the environment, or we can do Y. And yeah, it's going to cost us a little more, but it's going to have these other positive knock-on impacts for Lowell, for the region, and for the state. So if we can get the sustainability department to maybe identify 2 to 5 projects like that we could include with this letter to really try to help open the eyes on Beacon Hill of what's possible, show them that we're looking forward, that we have concrete ideas. You know, maybe that's something we can do to start knocking these dominoes over. But I appreciate the administration's efforts on this. I'm thankful to the MSBA for providing this funding. At the end of the day, our kids deserve to be warm and they deserve to be dry when they're at school. And this project addresses both of those things at different schools. Yes, we have more to do, and I look forward to seeing what options we have to make things better at our other schools. But I'm thankful that we're moving forward with this, and I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. With all that being said, need a motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office for 20 days by Councilor Janess, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Roll call.
Counsel Dakota.
Yes.
Counsel Gitchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke. Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
Yes.
11 yeas.
4.3, public hearings. Ordinance to amend Chapter 272, Water and Sewer, Article 10. Open the hearing if all those who speak in favor. All those in favor? Part of the hearing is closed. All those in opposition? All those in opposition? That part of the hearing is also closed. Any comments from the council? Need a motion, oh, Council Janice. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager, I'm wondering if you can give us just a quick synopsis of what is being changed in here, because I read through this and it's, you know, a lot of definitions and everything. I couldn't find any highlights that said what we're changing or what we're not. So I just wonder if we can get a synopsis of that before we vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the ordinance that's before the council this evening is the product of the negotiations with the EPA for the consent decree. There are a number of requirements that were made that both the law department and the sewer department have been going back and forth with the legal team at the EPA. Some of this has, and again, I'm not an expert, but some of these have to do with inflow to the sewer system. It's for preventing some private connections and penalties associated with that. A number of things that they identified we did not have in our ordinance that are requirements and requirements in other parts of the country. So this ordinance will put those things into place. And if the council would like, we can have more information at a later date from the wastewater team.
I think knowing that, you know, this came out of those negotiations between our legal team and the EPA and wastewater, I'm fine moving forward. Enough experts have looked at it and weighed in that I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
Councilor Getchia?
Move approval.
By Councilor Getchia, second by Councilor Mercia. Roll call.
Counsel Dakota.
Yes.
Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janice.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
Yes.
11 present. 11 yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor.
before we go into the manager's communication, I would like to ask for a point of personal privilege to start the new year off on a positive note and talk about the kindness of the Lowell Police Department. It'll only take a
Motion by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Noon. All is approved. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you. A lot of times we hear only the bad that goes on, and we seldom hear of the great deeds that city employees partake in. I'd just like to put a spotlight on the Lowell Police handing out gift cards to those residents on a fixed income, as well as the bicycle given to that young man who had his bike stolen while he was volunteering at a cleanup. How kind and generous of the Lowell Police Department. And I also know that the newspaper covered it, so I say great job to everyone. And I think we could start off the new year on a right foot. I know I'm the biggest complainer, and I don't want to really do that. So thank you very much for letting me say it.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm moving on to Section 6, Communications from the City Manager. 6.1, the resignation of John Dakota from the License Commission. Need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Robinson. All those in favor? 6.2, Communication, resignation of Janelle Diaz from the Commission on Disability. Yeah, motion to accept by Councilor Janess, seconded by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor? Placed on file. 6.3, Communication, the appointment of Joseph Donahue to the License Commission. Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Scott. Roll call.
Counsel Dakota.
Present.
Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janice.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
Yes.
10 yeas.
Section 7, votes from the city manager. No? All right. Accept, expend fiscal year 24 Shannon
You
Community
missed
Service
6.3, Mr. Mayor, 6.3.
We just did that.
Just did that.
You just voted yes on it. Good job.
Go back to sleep.
Councilor Young, did you say you wanted to bundle the votes from the city manager?
Yes.
You said? Okay, great. By Councilor Young, second by Councilor Scott. Votes for the city manager, 7.1, accept, expend FY24 Shannon Grant Community Service Initiative from the Lowell Police Department. 7.2, a vote amending the prior order approving the CPC recommendation to fund the preservation of Rowley's Farm. 7.3, the authorization of the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Kodo Asian Fusion. And 7.4, approve the exemption of John Dakota of the Mass General Law, Chapter 268, Section 20.
Mr. Mayor, on 7.4, could I have the city clerk note that I would be recusing myself?
Duly noted. Also, I believe there was a slight change that was put on number 7.4 by the law department, just a scrivener's error that is for correction.
All votes require 6 votes to pass. We have a motion.
And is a registered speaker on 7.4 as well. Laura Ortiz.
Do you want me to say it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, Laura Ortiz, resident of the United States. I had some concerns, in my opinion, about the vote. It's a little bit confusing. I'm not quite understanding whether or not Mr. Dakota has a contract yet with the school committee. I'm concerned about an entire body waiving him under Mass General Law 268A, Section 20, if that's going to create an actual state ethics issue, as well as, I understand, I just think it's the wording on this contract. I just don't think, I'm sorry, on this waiver, I don't think should be approved as written. I didn't see whether or not you got an Attorney General opinion, maybe a written opinion from the State Ethics Commission, but I'm very concerned, although I'm very appreciative that Mr. Dakota was elected for the City Council. It almost seemed a little bit like double dipping, or whatever else that you would call it. And so I'm very concerned that the state legislation enacted a law, and whether this body is going past what its duty and responsibility is to waive someone of a state law that I don't really think that you have the legal right to do so. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Any councilors wishing to speak on it? Councilman Russia?
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to cause a riot here, and I don't mind any person coming up to the podium to speak, but through you to the city solicitor, I personally thought that when you come up to the podium and you give your name and address. To say you're a citizen of the United States, I appreciate that, but we have certain rules, and I think you need to give your address. No disrespect, but if you want to be technical with the law, I think that is the law.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. Solicitor?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so under the city laws ordinances and under our rules, you are supposed to state your name, your full name, and your address.
So could I please have the person come to the podium and give her full name and address, please? Instead of saying the United States of America. We know where we are. I just want to know if we have rules about people coming in, and I have no problem with anybody speaking, but if we're going to talk about rules and follow the law, let's be fair and do that. So could you please come and tell us your address, please, for the record? Yes. Yes, please. Yes,
Council rules, please state your name and address.
because a city councilor has every right to address a person at the podium and question them, and that's what I'm doing, ma'am. And I don't mean any disrespect, but those are the rules here, that you give your name and address other than say United States of America. I know you live in the United States unless you took a flight in from Tijuana or whatever, but could you just give us your address, please?
I'm not required to do so.
Yes, you are. You are.
Oh,
Are you?
okay. I feel very uncomfortable about this, and I think that there are multiple exemption areas where people are not required to have to do so. That whether or not you have an ordinance doesn't mean that it's legal and requiring some people that may be exempt from doing so. So I take high offense to being questioned about whether or not I'm a citizen. I said that I lived in Lowell, that I am a
You
resident.
said you lived in the United States of America. I do too. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city solicitor, could we have a ruling on what we're discussing here?
Sure, so it's actually under the city council rules, Rule 26. that, all the meetings are open to the public, and anyone who is to speak or be heard on a matter has to state their name and address.
Well, I'm going to respectfully say that that's not in compliance with federal laws, and anyone that is exempt, it's not required for whatever legal reason to actually have to give that. So I would say that I feel that this is definitely retaliation.
Mr. Mayor, could I have a point of order,
I've
please?
spoken at many.
Could I have a point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. Councilor Gitcha?
Okay, all right.
Going forward, Mr. Mayor, if we can just make sure that the person states that, or that they're not, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Mercia. With that being said, the 7 votes, we need a motion to adopt by Councilor Janess, seconded by Councilor Yem.
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Good.
It's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had some questions on 7.4 for the solicitor. I was curious reading through this, approving the exemption of John Dakota from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20. In other times when we've done this, doesn't it have to be the entire position? Like the city councilor position is what we would have to exempt, and not the specific person who holds that? That was my impression. I could be mistaken.
Mr. Solicitor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we contacted the Ethics Commission directly, and we spoke to them about this because it is sort of, a unique set of circumstances with, retirement, trying to keep them here to bridge the gap into something else. It's just a little unusual. And obviously because, generally speaking, a city councilor, they can't be a special employee, which everyone understands. But we reached out to them, and they directed us. They were great. And they said, as long as Councilor Dakota were to retire, and he's able to work no more than the 500 hours, the city councilor position comes first, the school department comes second, and that falls under one of the many exemptions under 268A, Section 20B.
Okay, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that we've had a discussion with the ethics office, because I did read something on the mass.gov website which kind of stopped me in my tracks, which said under no circumstances may a mayor, city councilor, town councilor, alderman, or selectman in a town, blah, 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 may be designated as special. So I saw that and kind of stopped. So I'm glad to know that we've talked to ethics. Did we get a written opinion from them, just so we have our bases covered there?
No, so that conversation happened over the phone, but that's something we could certainly memorialize for the council if would make everyone more comfortable.
I think that would be a great thing to get. But knowing that discussion has happened and they're okay with it makes me okay with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yem, then Councilor Robertson, Councilor Newell. Councilor Yem?
This is on a 7.3, so just a quick question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. The Kodo Asian Fusion, when it say they encroach on the city property, is that the sidewalk that the sign encroaching on?
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's essentially because their sign would be hanging above our right-of-way.
The owner eventually sell the property, will that right transfer to the new owners?
Go ahead, yep.
Yeah, no, we would then, essentially, anytime somebody's trying to put a new sign up, they'd have to essentially receive the same approval.
Thank you.
Councilor Robertson?
Thank you. In regards to 7.4, I know we've had conversations in the past about every situation is different. Through you to the city solicitor. So this one, again, I know there's a cap on how many hours you can work in this special situation, as well as retirement is a component that allows this to happen. But what would the council need to do for something like along the lines of, I'll use Councilor Gitchia's example, where he is an employee considered of a school, so he's unable to receive compensation as an elected official. If this council wanted to adopt something, would it be within our own purview to create something where anybody that's in a similar situation would have the option. If you're not allowed to receive that compensation, you could pick, say, a charitable donation or a nonprofit that you could allocate that funding to, so that way you wouldn't receive any compensation directly, but all what you would have received would be allocated to whoever you're choosing would be. Is that within the city council's purview to create a system like that?
Mr. Solicitor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it certainly could be. The reason I say that is, the restrictions that fall under Chapter 39(6)A, they talk about, a city councilor can't receive two salaries. So they narrow it in specifically on the individual. But the law itself doesn't speak to that money going somewhere else. I would like to do some more research before I told you yes on that, but it certainly would satisfy the laws that prevent the city councilors from collecting the two salaries. So that's something I can certainly look into.
Could I please put that in the form of a motion for the city solicitor to come back with just a pathway forward, if that's something the council could adopt at some point?
Motion by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Yem. All those in favor? So moved. All set. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to speak briefly in full support of 7.4. Having Councilor Dakota leaving that position, it's a big loss to the school district, the transportation area. It's a gain for us on the city side, the city council side. Mr. Dakota came to make a presentation at the school committee one time and discussing all the challenges, all the changes in the transportation these days. And given his experience, that the city and the school department should be very, very grateful that Councilor Dakota is willing to serve as consultant during this troubling time to make sure to solve some of the transportation challenge and issues. If people watch the school committee meeting, I forgot it's like about a couple months ago, there's all kind of changes in routes, troubling with logistics. And with the experience Councilor Dakota have, it's absolutely invaluable to have the continuity to serve the family in our district. So I am in full support of this 7.4 line item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Getchia.
Thank you, Mayor Rourke. It's troubling when you hear people say someone's double dipping, like they're taking the same hour and being paid for it twice. It's troubling when people say that because every person in here works a full-time job and then does the council work. And I am 100% sure, knowing transportation in the city of Lowell and knowing transportation in a school, that a person is not going to be able to do city council work during that period of time. So, I mean, when we talk about these things, I truly think that everyone here works a full-time job and they work. So I think I'll fully support this. I have no problem with this because I think that Councilor Dakota will absolutely put in the work, and I don't have any fear of anybody double dipping. I do agree with Councilor Janess. Let's just make sure everything's on the up and up, and if it is, the city solicitor says yes, then there's no reason for much of a discussion. So I fully would support this. Thank you.
Thank you. So a motion to adopt all four votes by Councilor Getchia, seconded by Councilor, you want to speak? Councilor Noon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 7.4. So this does sound like, Councilor Dakota is going to stay with the, the transportation. He's leaving. He's staying right now as consultant to help the next person coming in. And from there on, it's going to be the city council. I don't think this is double dipping at all. I think that's his way. He's kind enough to stay on as a consultant for the school. Clearly, it's a big loss to the school, big shoe to fill. And we keep saying that we want, people to run for office. We want to pay them. It's not enough, of course. But those stipends, he deserves it. So I'll vote in support of it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it says on the vote, John Dakota shall not receive his city council stipend while he is working as a consultant for the City of Lowell School Department. how hard is that to understand? We need his knowledge to train someone else. It's on a temporary basis. I have no problem with it, and I will support this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Council. I'll just quickly say that at this point in time, the city needs Council Dakota much more than Council Dakota needs the city, right? So I think we should be thanked for his service and willing to, also retire, but also continue and to do one of the most important jobs over at the school department. With that being said, motion to adopt by Councilor Getchia, second by Councilor Mercia. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Counsel Dakota. Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janess.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
Yes.
Yes.
Section 8, reports. No subcommittees at this time. Erastus, who has agreed to stay on as the mayor's aide, which I'm sure everybody's happy about, including me. He'll be sending out an email to all the councilors stating preferences on what subcommittees you may want to serve on, so please get that back as soon as possible, and I'll try to get this out to the council just as fast. We have 3 reports from the wire inspector. The first report, National Grid requests installation of upgraded underground conduit on McIntyre Street at Middlesex Street. The second one was a request installation of a new pole and secondary conductor on West 4th Street. And the third was from Boston Gas, National Grid, request installation of 3 vent poles to upgrade gas pressure regulator at 20 Clark Road. Any comments? If not, Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Just a quick question. Don't really need an answer right now, but through you to the manager. So the second one, installation of a pole at 4th Street, West 4th Street. Could you just check on the poles that they should be taken out over on Moore Street and Andrew Street, and just make sure the poles are coming out before they're putting new poles in? We've been after them for years now to get Moore Street and that area cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Sean Machado?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know the last time you checked on Moore Street, but I think there was one left. And so they're chipping away at it. There were, I think, 6 or 7, but they're working on it.
No, I appreciate it, but again, it's been 3 or 4 years, so the chipping needs to be stopped.
There's
They
one
need to
left
do
that
it.
they're going to get.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manager, there's not a
Appreciate it.
further expert in the city on double poles than Councilor Leahy, okay? So please do not argue with him on this subject, okay? Yes. Thank you.
And Councilor Scott now, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All 3 of those reports, I need a motion to accept and adopt accompanying orders by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor? So moved. Petitions, 9.1 claims, 2 property damage. Motion to refer to Law Department for report and recommendation by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Robinson. All those in favor? Motion passes. Section 10. Executive session, 10.1, discuss matters of potential litigation, open meeting law complaint, public discussion, which could have a detrimental effect to the city's position.
Mr. Mayor, could I just have a point of order on this, on the executive
Yeah,
session piece?
I'll just finish up real quick before we vote. Sorry. Just to, motion to announce the reason for executive session, which you just did, and a motion to enter executive session. And then after the fact, we'll do a motion to adjourn. Before that vote, Councilor Getchia?
Thank you, Mayor Rourke. I'm just curious about the posting piece of the executive session. When you look at the state's website and you read through it, it says, one of the 4 things that have to be done is state the reason for the executive session, stating all subjects that will be revealed without compromising the purpose for which the executive session was called. There's a piece that has been given to all of us that basically is a public record that anybody can get. So I'm not sure why that's not posted on this agenda. And also, we should name the litigation. And who's the complainant? And what are they complaining about? Or what are they alleging? I just think that when we start doing this and we start posting these things, that has no detrimental value to whatever's going on. I've received multiple calls on this asking, what are you guys going in there for? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then when we see that we got something in an email that gives us the outline, and then you can get that at the AG's office, it should be put in the packet so that the residents can also read it, because it's part of the open meeting law in executive session. And I guess that's just my question going forward, is to make sure that we post these correctly.
Hey, Counselor. Anything else? Yeah, sure. A motion to go to executive session. We'll take first by Counselor Noon, second by Counselor Scott. I think both together. Okay, and then also
Councilor Rourke, can I just, I'm sorry, Mayor Rourke, can I just ask that to the city solicitor, if this posting actually meets the guidelines, and why are we not posting the other stuff as outlined in the executive session that's highlighted in the state guideline?
Solicitor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this would satisfy the posting to go into executive session at this point.
I would, again, disagree that we have more information that can be put in this and should be put in this, like who the complainant is and what the alleged complaint is, because it should be shared with the public. If that document is a public record at the AG's office, then it should be attached to this, because it's a public document, and it's open to the public. But thank you.
All right, so we have two motions on the floor. First to go into executive session, second to adjourn from executive session. Motion by Counselor Noon, second by Counselor Scott. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Getchia.
Yes.
Counselor Janess.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Mercier. Yes. Counselor Noon.
Yes.
Counselor Robinson. Yes. Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke. Counselor Scott.
Yes.
Counselor Yem.
Yes.
Counselor Chow. 11 yeas.
Mr. Mayor, before we leave the chambers, can we do the announcements?
I'm just about to get to announcements, Counselor Janess.
Cool.
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make note that tomorrow night is the first game for the new professional women's hockey team over at the Songus Arena. I understand they released some more tickets today. I'll be there tomorrow. Looking forward to welcoming the return of professional hockey to the city of Lowell. So if anybody's looking for something to do tomorrow night, should be a good time. Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else? Okay. See you in executive session. Go. Counselor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say great job chairing the first meeting as mayor. Congratulations.
The record to show that Counselor Dakota screwed up first. All right. Adjourn the executive session.
Good job, kid. We got it. We got it.